Mr. Long?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Dwayne Ong, member of the Aberdeen School Board. My question relates to House Bill 1139 and also House Bill 1141 as regards the maximum levies that school districts can put for the capital outlay fund. 1139 repeals the current cap of $2,800 per student maximum that the district can levy. House Bill 1141 would increase the cap from $2,800 to $3,800, so that would be an increase of about $1,000 per school district. I believe this bill is being heard in the taxation committee. Either it's been there or it will be this coming week. I would appreciate hearing some comments from the House members especially, or anyone else too, concerning this bill, and perhaps if you formed any kind of position on these two bills at this time. Thank you for taking the question.
I'll just address some of the background and then to make sure we're all kind of on the same page. When we redid the education formula, when we added the half penny, except for that was the year I wasn't there, they added the half penny and they changed the formula quite a bit. They equalized a lot of the other revenue, and they also put some caps on capital outlay fund that I think were pretty important. You remember that also, as I said in my previous remarks, for the last 10 years we've been phasing in new ag value property values. They've been going up, and up, and every time they go up, there is a mechanism in state law that says we ratchet down the maximum levy so that the person that's owning that property that's going up in value isn't going to pay more tax unless a whole lot of other things happen. But that mechanism was not there for the capital outlay fund. So the schools were really rich in capital outlay dollars. And we had given them the flexibility to move money from their capital outlay fund to their general operating fund in order to meet expenses, which a lot of them were doing because they were running into trouble paying their bills with just what we were allowing them to spend out of their general fund. So when the new formula came, they put some caps on capital outlay. And really, as legislators, we look around the country and see all the new schools that are built, and the new schools that are built in places that you wonder how much longer they're going to be viable. And you start wondering and thinking that there's got to be something wrong with this formula. And that's, I feel, what they were trying to fix in putting those caps on. So that's the situation. I'm hoping now that Representative Denner can take it from there.
Yeah, 1139, that bill is brought by Representative Gosh and it's heading to the House Education Committee, so I'll let, if Representative Greenfield wants to speak to that one, I'll let her speak to that one. But 1141 is the bill that's going to be coming before Taxation Committee, which is where I sit, or one of my two committees. That bill actually is a pretty simple bill. What it says is that the maximum taxes allowed would be changed from $2,800 for each enrolled student to $3,800 for each enrolled student. So it is a pretty significant increase, and I know some of these rural districts have been asking for that. We actually had a bill up in House taxation last year that was very similar. I can't remember if it was that exact number or not, but it was basically trying to change the maximum amount that you could tax per enrolled student. So that'll be coming before our House Taxation Committee possibly this week. It hasn't been scheduled for a hearing quite yet, but I would expect to see quite a few superintendents from the smaller districts come testify for that bill, and I assume we'll give it a good hearing, and I guess at this point I haven't made a decision on how I'm gonna vote quite yet.
We haven't heard anything yet on House Bill 1139, but I did hear from one particular individual, and I just thought I'd share this wisdom with you, Dwayne. I think it's a very, very good testimony. In fact, I told this person involved to come and testify on House Bill 1139. That's the only thing I've really heard, but it's good. This person says that one of the reasons that they consolidated school 4 years ago is that they were better able to get educational opportunities going forward, and the combination of the two districts allowed access to more funds as a consolidated district. And so the cap on the capital outlay as it stands compared to the old 3 mil cap now cost our district approximately $600,000 to $700,000 that we can access. And while we can access this money, we also recognize that if we do not have a plan or need for the funds, we can reduce the taxes in our district. So as it stands, we will need an opt-out in the future. As it stands, we will need an opt-out in the future. If the cap is removed, we'll probably have the flexibility and not need to do an opt-out. So this person was very grateful for this House Bill 1139, thinking that perhaps it could be a win-win, at least in their district. And the thing is, I mean, there's always a point and a counterpoint. Sometimes it plugs in and works really well for some districts, some of these bills, and sometimes it doesn't. So we'll see what the testimony will be.
I'd like to thank you for the question, Dwayne, and again, thank you for your continued advocacy for education. 1139 is a House bill, obviously, but I am the Senate prime on it, and I will obviously be supporting it and hoping that it gets over to us. The one thing that I would just note is that for all the situations that we tried to solve in 2016, we left some really, we left some holes. And I think some were by design. I think that some intended to starve some of the small schools, some of the smaller schools. I wrote about it the week after the bill passed, and that, in as far as I thought it was a forced consolidation in disguise effort. And so I continue to believe that. One of the things that proves that is that some of the schools lose other funds to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars because of the redistribution of the other funds due to their local economic development efforts. Wind projects that were otherwise local effort now get spread across the state. And I think I mentioned it last week, I know I've mentioned it in the past. One of the problems is you have counties that are contemplating economic development projects, and they find that, well, the county doesn't lose their local effort portion, the school does after 5 years, and it's redistributed across the state. After 10 years, it's entirely gone as far as the school is concerned, and all they get is a portion of it back in terms of the per student allocation, and I think I want to say ill-conceived, because I think it was. And I mean, when I say hundreds of thousands, I mean, I talked with one school this week, they're gonna lose $92,000 a year. Talked with another school, they're over $350,000 a year. I've heard of other schools that will be losing in excess of $600,000, or a school at least. So what happened in 2016 now has become a matter of determining who is the biggest loser. There was more money injected into the formula, but when the formula was rewritten, it left a lot of people behind the 8 ball. So we have a lot of things to discuss this year relative to the capital outlay levies that are going to be allowable going forward, and how we're going to treat other funds. Thank you.
Regarding the equalization of the local funds, yes, there are losers, there are some losers in this area. For every loser, there is a winner. The principle is that the state's responsibility is to make sure that every child gets a free basic public education. A basic principle involved in that is that every district have the same amount of money to educate each child that they have. When the state was allowing the local monies that Senator Greenfield was speaking of to stay with a local district, they were also getting state aid. That meant that that district had this much to spend per child, whereas a district that wasn't lucky enough to have, or ambitious enough to have wind towers in their district, got this much per child. Now that the wind tower money and the fines and the bank franchise taxes are all put into the pot, they're all included in the definition of local effort, as they should be. And that means that the state aid money goes further, and that the poorest school districts have a little bit more money per child to educate them. It made all the boats float a little higher. And so that's the other side of my school district is losing hundreds of thousands of dollars. That money is going into the joint state effort to make sure that every child in our state has an equal opportunity to a good education.